Very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
great. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Amelia, for allowing us to present. One of the reasons we wanted to present to social workers is we work very closely with social workers all the time. A lot of our cases are referred to us by social workers, or just we work with the social workers after the people come to our office, and they're really heroes in our eyes because they do all the very difficult work, meeting with the clients for long periods of time, getting to know them, and really getting to help them. I'm not sure how much thanks they get from the clients or for anyone else, but we certainly appreciate their good work. And we thought that we'll try to do this webinar to try to give a little information from the a side that the social workers may not see themselves, that it's the other side of Social Security. Like whatever happens after I meet with someone, or a social worker meets with someone and maybe helps them fill out a form or something, and then, they're wondering like why things went in a certain way or whatever happened or what does happen. So hopefully we'll answer some of those questions, and it'll allow everyone to maybe provide even more directed and even better assistance to their clients. So let's uh, let's begin. Well, we have a lot of different things we're gonna try to cover. I'll first give a little introduction to myself. We'll talk a little bit about the Social Security program, some myths and misconceptions, and some areas that we can work together and I think have things, take away a lot of misconceptions and a lot of things that are unclear. We'll try to make clear so that you will be able to be on the same page and provide the assistance that your patients need. Okay. I'll just tell you briefly a little bit about myself. I graduated NYU a long time ago, and I first worked as an assistant district attorney in Brooklyn, prosecuting criminal cases at all different levels in grand juries, and it was actually very interesting work. And afterwards, uh, I was feeling my way around doing a bunch of different areas of law, and one of the areas that I happened to happen upon was Social Security, disability, and SSI. And the reason that it kind of stuck with me, or I stuck with it, was it was an area where I like helping people, and it's a very people-oriented area of law. And it's not often that a lawyer can get a hug from a client afterwards. And the people a lot of times are very thankful. They waited a long time to get their benefits. They were frustrated. They were denied repeatedly. And it's very sad. It's very satisfying area of law to be able to help people who really need the help and oftentimes don't know exactly how to get it on their own. Okay, and now we have a little introductory video to say a little about the for our firm.
Daniel, I
Okay,
apologize. I
okay,
need to
sorry.
interrupt. We can't
Yeah.
hear it. Um, I could show you how to reshare your screen to set it up that way, or you could kind of give us
Okay.
a synopsis of what this is, or
How do
maybe
okay,
someone on your team has
Or maybe
a link and I can
Sharon.
share that in the chat.
Should I share the video in the chat or
Yes.
should I share my screen?
Yes. Yes.
in the meantime, hopefully if we get the video going, it'll give a little overview, hopefully in an entertaining way, of what we do and who we help, and then I could follow up with some more details afterwards. Or do you want to do that? If it'll take a while, we could play it at a later time.
Wait, so how would we change the audio?
So
How could we...
I can if you put the link into the chat box, I can share it from my screen and fix the audio issue.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for your flexibility. All right. All right, I'm just going to steal the screen share from you, Daniel.
Okay.
All right. No. Okay, let's give that one more try. Sharon or Susan, I need you to I need folks to turn on off their audio. So mute yourself so we're not getting that feedback. Thanks.
Okay, we can always
Yeah.
we could probably put it on our website. People could watch it afterwards. Shall I go on?
If you mute yourself, Daniel.
Amelia, the screen is frozen.
All right, so I think we're gonna have to move on. Unfortunately, that kicked me out. Daniel, if that's okay, if we can move on to the rest of the presentation. If that works. I apologize, everyone. I'm gonna unmute you, Daniel, if that's okay. All right, Daniel, you are unmuted.
Okay. Okay. And we're back. But now I don't have the yeah. Sharon, do you want to share the screen? I don't see the
if you just click the screen, it'll go to the next slide.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, we're back.
There we go.
Sorry, everybody. Okay. Well, in the process, there's always ups and downs, so you have to, I guess, go with the flow. In the Social Security is not running straight, so you have to get used to different bumps in the road. Talking about just a little bit about Social Security disability, because that's the topic today, is Social Security disability. So it's not necessarily disability as the general population may think, that the person is bedridden or something. The idea for Social Security, just as an overview, is the inability to engage in substantial gainful activity. And what that is basically is if someone is not able to work 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So a lot of people may be disabled for Social Security, and even though a person may think, oh, they're not disabled, they're not at all bedridden. The person doesn't have to be at all bedridden. They just have to be. There's a lot of reasons why people are not able to work full time. So, and if a person's not able to, then they could potentially be eligible for Social Security disability or SSI. So the Social Security, when they go through a case, they'll just, again, to give you a little peek of what they do, they go through a little evaluation and they look, number one, is the person working substantial gainful activity? Obviously, if the person is working full time, then they're not going to be found that they can't do something that they are doing. Okay. Then they have to see if the person has any severe impairments. And when it says severe impairments, it's actually, again, a lot of things are like legal terms, and they're not exactly how the general population would read some of these words. And I think that's one of the ideas that we can gain from tonight, is that some things are not exactly as they appear. So when you have a severe impairment, it's like an abnormal impairment, not minor, more than minor. That's really actually the legal term. And when I say the legal term, there's actually like cases that this is argued over, and that's how the courts have ruled. Do impairments meet Social Security listing? There's a few books in Social Security. I might, if we have time, tell a story about that later, but there is one book of actual listing. It's just a list of disabilities, but to meet those, you literally have to be like almost dying. And they give the people, so that's not really relevant. They do that in every case. They look at it, but it's not really relevant to 99% of the cases, even the cases that do get it, because those people it's so severe that it's not really any question. Was the applicant able to work in the past? That's an issue that they do look at. There are a number of issues that they look at. And is the applicant able to do their past work? Or if they're not, are they able to do other work? Okay. Now it just shows how many people in the US have disabilities, have issues, have impairments. It says 61 million adults live with the disability, but again, this is not necessarily are found disabled as per Social Security. Some people have different issues. Like, for example, right now, one of my shoulders is bothering me, but that's not necessarily a disability. So some people, that's one of the things we'll discuss, is what is the difference between someone who has an issue, an impairment, something that's bothering them, but are still able to work, and someone who has an issue that makes it impossible for them to work on a full-time basis. Sorry. Okay. Actually, let me go back for a second before I get to this. I just want to talk a little. I don't want to give that away. So we'll talk a little bit as I think was listed as part of this webinar. Some of the topics we'll talk about is that people experience intimidation, uncertainty, and there are many misconceptions around Social Security, which can prevent people from seeking the benefits. That's 100% true. And what I want to say is I've come across, I don't know if this has been other people's experience who are participating in this webinar, but I've come across a lot of people, other lawyers, colleagues of mine, friends, who are saying, "Oh, everyone's always claiming disability. Everyone's always claiming disability, and everyone's always getting disability, and people don't want to work, and this is." I've seen it. I don't watch a ton of TV, but I've seen a bunch of clips even this year and years past. How they're just people who just don't want to work. There's just people who don't want to work. I think actually, and the idea is also, and this was even there were shows on PBS, 60 Minutes, saying how people are basically trying to, like scam the system. That this is this is the hidden secret. This is the way to get rich, that you don't have to work and you get disability. When in reality, it's really quite different. In my experience, and I've been doing this for over 25 years, really, you don't get relatively, you can make a lot more money working. So I don't really think this is a great idea. I think anyone who can work generally tries to work. And I mean, there are always exceptions, but in reality, there are a lot of people who are suffering. There are a lot of people, like I said, who have some issue and yet gut it out and go to work. But there are a lot more people who also have one or multiple issues. It could be physical, it could be mental, it could be a combination. And these people, a lot of times, they are intimidated because the general view in society is, well, why don't you just why don't you just, go to work? So what, you have this, go to work. And that's the view, unfortunately, of the Social Security Administration, which is in charge of deciding whether people will be granted disability benefits or not. And so it goes because a lot of times people try to put in their own view, impose it onto other people's lives. For example, sometimes, and I've had it with physical and mental issues. So person can come in with a back issue and a judge will say, well, I had back issues too. I mean, it's hard to compare. So therefore, and I'm sitting here working, so can you. I had another judge told me after the hearing, I had someone who had a severe knee injury and then needed a knee replacement. And the judge told me afterwards that he tore his meniscus, which is not really comparable to a full knee replacement. But additionally, the judge has a sit-down job. He graduated college and law school and is sitting down, and the claimant, was a construction worker, so who had a knee replacement. So it's a little of a different situation, but the judge was seeing, well, we're kind of the same. I persevered through my little, strain. And so what, we both had knee issues. Mine is a torn meniscus and yours is a total knee replacement. It's all, so if I'm working, you can work. And similarly, I think it's even more prevalent in psychiatric cases, because a lot of people, let's face it, everybody gets depressed at one time or another. Everybody gets anxious at one time or another. So if people so the judges also say, well, I also went through a hard time. My girlfriend left me. Why my wife left me. I had a very difficult time, so, and they're thinking in their mind, well, I was anxious. And I'm working. So they're, superimposing their thoughts onto the clients, and it's quite different. Saying that you were a little anxious is different than someone who's diagnosed with severe anxiety, or that someone was, sad or down is not the same as someone who's diagnosed with major depression or schizophrenia or bipolar or a combination of them. So, so there is definitely, I think, a big misconception in society, and this carries over to Social Security. This has people not want to apply, and this has judges view people in a certain light. So they're already coming in viewing the people differently, and it's much different than the way, in my view, the way it was viewed when I started out over 25 years ago. So let's look at a couple of different myths. Okay, here's some questions. Only applicants nearing retirement qualify for SSD. You must be disabled for a year before you can file for disability benefits. SSD benefits are only for physical disabilities. My screen is blocking that. Or if your initial application was denied, you're out of luck. Okay, let's see the reality. Okay, so for the first one, it says only applicants nearing retirement qualify. Generally, you must have an adequate work history in order to qualify, but you don't need to be near retirement. That's true. Okay, so for SSD, you do need to you don't at all have to be near retirement. We can also talk about SSI, where you don't actually need a work history for SSI, and you don't at all have to be near retirement. In fact, you could get it when you're very young. Now, I'll say that Social Security looks at it very differently. When you're young, Social Security will kind of look at you sideways and try to deny you even more than they'll deny you when you're older. Not that they won't try to deny you when you're older also, but it doesn't mean you're not going to qualify and you won't eventually get it. The second myth, you must be disabled for a year before you can file. It's not really true. To qualify, your condition must be projected to last at least a year. So, however, you can apply as soon as you become disabled. Okay, so if your condition is going to pass in in a couple of weeks, then it's not considered disability. Disability has to be something that's going to last at least 1 year. Okay, SSD benefits are only for physical disabilities. Not true. As we said, psychological disabilities such as bipolar, depression, anxiety, autism can be just as disabling as physical health conditions. I should also mention that headaches can also be fibromyalgia, which some of these things can also have a combination of physical and psychological aspects to them. So these are all things that can get disability. Okay. Let me just see. Right. If your initial application was denied, you're out of luck. There is not true at all. Most people, we'll get to a slide later probably showing by far most people are denied initially. That's what they want to do, is kind of tell you to turn you away and hope, and just that seems to be their built into the system, that they want people to give up at different levels. They're always gonna, so there's a a big appeals process, robust appeals process for overturning wrongful denials. And well, that's one of the ways that a lawyer can help you appeal, because there are different levels and you shouldn't give up, because when you give up and you have to start all over again, like a few months later, then you're missing out on benefits. You should always persevere. They want you to give up, and you just have to keep pushing forward till you are able to get the evidence before someone who's sympathetic enough or objective enough to grant the case. Talking about that just a little bit from our point of view. So what we do when I started out, we did hearings. And pretty much only hearings. We didn't do. Now we expanded to do applications and cases in federal court. I'll just tell you a little bit about the hearings at this point. So the hearings, one of the reasons it's important to be represented, it's not necessary to be represented. A person can go with a friend, or a person can go themselves. But it's a little tricky. When I first started, it was quite different, and a lot of people were unrepresented and were successful because it was truly a non-adversarial process, and the judges were mostly fair. And if you had a legitimate case, I would say most of the time you got it. But that things have really changed now, and the system is really looking to deny as many people as possible. And so you have the judges themselves are under tremendous pressure. So you have on the left, you have like what we'll call a nice judge, a friendly judge. Even the friendly judges are in trouble. If they give it to too many people, or they give it to too many young people, or even too many people of any age, they could find themselves on double secret probation, or in a re-education class, because Social Security has to tell them, Social Security isn't too happy about that. And then you can have so some of the judges who want to give it if they want to keep their jobs, then they have to deny a lot more people than they would want to. Then you have the judges who enjoy denying people, and there is a number of them. So you have to be careful, because a lot of these judges don't, according to Social Security regulations, it's a non-adversarial proceeding, and there's not really supposed to be a prosecutor against you. You just present your case, and it should be accepted if it's okay. But the reality is that a lot of the judges act as prosecutors, and they as the person's adversary. So it's pretty tough, and that's why it's important to be prepared for the hearing. I'll say also, you have another kind of judge. Sometimes the friendly judge on the left looks like a friendly judge, but actually is a tricky judge. So you have the people going to the hearings, and I'll just say one of the reasons that you may, if you're a social worker and you have different people who are applying, and you're hearing different stories, and you're hearing this person got awarded and this person got denied, and you're wondering, well, I don't understand that. This person is much more disabled than the other person. Why did that happen? Because when you walk into these hearing rooms and they're side by side, it's like two different worlds. Like, you really never know what's going to happen. So if you get a judge who's more sympathetic, a person can get it. And a person who's more severely disabled may run into a buzzsaw. They might run into a tough judge who's going to deny them, and that can just start the process of going on for years. But even sometimes you have, like I said, a seemingly friendly judge, and and then the people don't, if they go in, especially without counsel or without good counsel, then they think that everything went well, when they have no idea what just transpired. So, for example, I'll give one from a hearing that I viewed, that the judge started engaging was friendly, started engaging the claimant in conversation and was saying, and the hearing was in the Bronx, so it was near Yankee Stadium. And then the judge was saying, oh, do you like sports? It was a man. You like sports? You like the Yankees? Yeah. Have you been to any game? Yeah, was at a game last year. It was great. Yeah. Who'd you go with? I went with a couple of my buddies. And the judges, and it's like a real friendly hearing. And then the judge says, oh, and you had some beers at the game, right? Yeah, I had some beers, of course. And the guy walks out of the hearing thinking it went well. I thought it was going to be a tough hearing, but the judge was so friendly. We're talking about baseball. It was amazing. He's a Yankee fan, and it's great. And in the meantime, the judge rejected him. Already before the guy left the room, he already wrote, like denied, because he's thinking, now I got him to say he goes out, he socializes, he does different things. He's drinking again. He had a drinking problem and now he's still drinking beer. So you have to be very careful. You have to know the judges, and you have to be prepared for these hearings. Okay, Social Security, like we said, there's two programs that are similar, very similar, but a little bit different. So I'll talk quickly about them. Social Security disability is for people who work for at least 10 years and then have either got sick or were in an accident and for some reason can't work. So their benefits are based on their earnings. If they get it, if they are awarded, then they're not only get monthly benefits, but they also get Medicare. And this is one of the reasons that Social Security, it's so important for your patients, clients to get these benefits, is not only the income could be a lifesaver for them, but the health benefits are also very important. So this way they can continue to get health coverage, health treatment, and hopefully actually get better. Okay, then it says provides benefits eligible family members. If people have young children, then they can also get benefits. Let's see. Now, the other program is Supplemental Security Income, SSI. The thing that's similar, that's the same for our point of view, for our purposes, is for Social Security disability and SSI, is that the person has to prove the same disability. You have to show that you're not able to work, as we said, substantial gainful activity, full-time basis, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. If you could do that, then you're going to be eligible. The question is, which program are you eligible for? So for SSI, it's people who didn't have enough work. Either they're young and they didn't work enough, or they were never able to work. They were, who knows, in and out of different facilities. So you could still get SSI benefits. It's based on where you live, how much the state will add to the federal part of it. And the SSI, you'll also get health benefits, but it'll be Medicaid rather than Medicare. And sometimes we have people who worked, but they worked at a low wage, and then because they didn't earn a lot per year, they couldn't be eligible for both. They can get some SSD and some SSI, and they could maybe be eligible for Medicare and Medicaid. Okay, there are two. There are different ways to get Social Security. You could get it for a physical issue or for a mental issue. And I saw at the beginning when Amelia was talking to some of the participants that we had some different people. I think a lot of the participants are treating people for mental issues, but I saw that I think somebody was helping blind people, visually impaired, and maybe another pediatric outpatient. So there could be different people, and sometimes the people have a couple of different things. And I think the combination is important to note, because sometimes people may come to you and say, can you help me? Can you give me a letter or something about my condition and how you're helping me? And I'm not sure, but a person might be inclined to say, well, I really, in my view, you could work. But perhaps we should, not give only our view, and just, if you're, I think we should help our clients, but without giving. Social Security doesn't even like people to report, like doctors or any other provider, to say the person is disabled or is not disabled. They like to say they'll make the form, they'll make the decision. So we should just say, well, just say whatever you treat them for, because it may be enough, and it may be that somebody else is treating them for something else, and then the combination will make them eligible based on, because there are a lot of different factors that are involved. The person's age is a factor, the person's education is a factor, the person's past work history is a factor, or non-work history is a factor. So there's a lot of different factors that go into each case, and that's how you evaluate whether a case, we pride ourselves in taking a lot of cases and winning a lot of cases that other firms didn't take, that people went to, commonly they went to 3 other firms and no one took the case, and then we'll take the case and we won it. That's, that makes us feel like we really did a good job and helped someone else, and that's pretty common. Or the people themselves just give up. So some of the physical problems are back pain, migraines, asthma. Like I said, fibromyalgia could also be a combination of physical and psychological. Chronic pain is very important. And on the psychological side, you have, of course, anxiety and bipolar and depression, schizophrenia, and PTSD. So you have or like we said, a combination of these issues. And sometimes the combination gets to be overwhelming in a few ways. And one of the ways is, a lot of us we all deal with some kind of, setbacks, hardship. That's life. Sometimes you twist your ankle, you move on, or sometimes you're anxious, you can move on, or you're back, but it's harder when you twist your ankle, but you also hurt your knee, and then you're also very anxious and you had PTSD, then it makes everything much more difficult to deal with. So one of the things I just wanted to say about all these, I'll get to it a little bit later if we go over the forms, is that, again, all these things are issues that could prevent you from working full time. So some of the things people might think they're not disabling, like let's say a migraine, for example. But a migraine, if because everybody gets some headaches, so you might say, "What, headaches? Disability? That doesn't make any sense. Everybody gets headaches." But there's a difference between regular headaches that people get and you take an aspirin and you're okay, and very severe migraines, which actually are disabling. And again, they don't have to be disabling every day. But if someone gets a migraine and they're disabling half a day for a few days a month, it's hard to keep a full-time job if you have that condition. Okay. Well, this is talking about a lot, again, that you have to be out for 12 months. It has to be that it'll last at least 12 months. What are the things that help? Of course, if you think someone is not disabled, first of all, I'm not sure we should make that call. They may have they may still have other things that you don't know about, and I don't think we should necessarily dissuade someone. You could say, I don't think this by itself is disabling, but I think it's very important to try to be helpful to the person and at least write what the issues are, because the issues again, for social security disability, it doesn't at all mean that you have to be bedridden. They could still be functional. They could still, there's a big difference between social security. Sometimes in their denials, they'll say things which courts have rejected, but they'll say, well, the person's able to feed and dress themselves and, and make some food. That doesn't mean that a person's not disabled for Social Security. That doesn't mean that a person could work full time. That just means that a person doesn't need a home health aide. So these are so there are a lot of things where a person can function and seemingly function and seem to do things. They can maybe live on their own and do some chores and even seem okay and seem like they could do some work. But the question is, can they do it on a full-time basis in a steady way, like stay on point, stay on task, be reliable, show up on time, and do that every day. Okay, let's talk about depression. So this is obviously a very common condition. The issue is, and this is also something that needs to be fleshed out, because sometimes people have it's very understandable that people have it when they're going through other issues. So that there is a psychological aspect. So sometimes when people have serious physical conditions and they're being treated for that, they also have, as a result, some serious psychological issue, and it's important that it be addressed. And again, as I was saying, that it not be glossed over, because many times they'll not only gloss over the issue that, oh, it's not a big deal. Even if they think they'll acknowledge that it's a big deal, they'll say, okay, so what I'm going to do, this person has, for example, they'll say the person has PTSD and bipolar and severe anxiety where they can't leave that. So what I'm going to do is I acknowledge that they have all that. I acknowledge they have severe trauma and severe anxiety and all these things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put them to, and they really, cannot be with other people. So I'm going to put them to like a simple job, and that's somehow going to magically, account for all these different issues. The person's going to have, all these serious psychological issues. And I'm going to say, you could do a simple job, which has nothing to do really with the psychological issue. The person could be, have a master's degree. So they don't need a simple job. The issue is not that they're not able to do something detailed or sophisticated. The issue is that they're dealing with a psychological problem that makes it very difficult to participate on a full-time basis at, when they need to do it. So, and maybe interact with people that they need to interact with as necessary. So a lot of times it's, at least initially in the denials, they're saying you could do this, you could do a simple job, which really doesn't address the underlying issue and the underlying problem. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Let's talk for a second about on drugs, because this is an issue that comes up a lot with with psychiatric issues. I mean, it can come up with everybody, but it's not really so relevant. It's more relevant with the psychological impairments, because what happened was, before, actually, if you would believe it, before 1996, if you said that you couldn't work because you were addicted to cocaine, you would actually be eligible. But President Clinton passed law that with Congress, that now you're not eligible for disability because you're addicted to drugs. In fact, if you're addicted to drugs, even if you have a mental issue, it can make you ineligible. But that's not true. That if you have a drug problem, you can't get disability. So the people, and even if it's even if it's, we ideally want the people to be clean or clean for at least some period. So we could say that they have this issue, even though they have a drug issue, that the psychiatric issue is independent of the drug issue. Now, a lot of times, but even if they can't, we still will try to get them the benefit. So here we have a chicken and an egg, and the reason is because a lot of times we don't know what happened first. The drugs and psychological issues often go hand in hand. So what obviously the drugs, illegal drugs usually, even if people think they help, they're usually really exacerbating the psychiatric disorder, for example, schizophrenia, but a lot of times the reason people turn to, on the other hand, the drugs, I argue, are a lot of times an indication that the person has a psychological problem, because a lot of times, most of the time, people turn to the illegal drugs because they're not feeling right and they don't know how to get treatment, and they self-medicate. So it's really a chicken and an egg. It's more helpful for the person to be clean, or to for a longer period of time. But we work with many people who are still having drug issues and still can get Social Security disability or SSI as a result of psychiatric problems. So they should not, the idea is, yes, you want to work to get the people clean, and not to get too upset if they had a relapse, not to just give up, say, well, I blew it, so forget it. No, not at all. You have to persevere, and obviously the more sobriety is best for the person themselves and best for their case, but they certainly can still get disability even if there is a drug issue. Okay, just for a minute, it's getting a little late. Obviously now there's issues with COVID and long COVID, and I'll just say the general idea is the sorry. The general idea is, with, again, just to kind of keep it not too detailed, for any issue, is it affecting your ability to work on a full-time basis? So whatever we call it, sometimes is it COVID, is it a psychiatric issue? Who knows what it is? But if the person's having problems, let's say neurological, let's go to that. If they're having problems thinking or concentrating, if they're having headaches, it doesn't really matter for our purposes if the person's having headaches because it's a physical manifestation, or if it's because of COVID, or if it's like a psychiatric component, like it's a stress headache. It really doesn't matter. The point is, or anything else, or any other pain, let's say chronic pain, all of these things, the issue is, do they have these symptoms, and are they affecting them? Are they stopping them, limiting them in some way? And then we'll see how much these issues are limiting them. Okay, let's see. Okay, so again, this is a new issue, which we'll see how much it plays out. If it continued, there are definitely some cases because of COVID, and then there are also, we'll see if it gets exacerbated as time goes by or subsides. Okay, so as far as psychological, again, I think this is one of the it's a very big issue, not only now because of COVID. It just seems our times and social media, a lot of people are upset, a lot of people are depressed. Suicide is up, but this is obviously a social. This is an area where you could be a huge help, a huge resource for your patients, to have them get help, have them stay the course, and not give up, and get help, and And maybe if they feel that the right people are helping them, then they will persevere. I often am surprised at how long some of our clients are able to hold on and, really make it through. And I'm very happy at the end when they do get their benefits. But one of the things it is, I'll just add about that, is that it's so hard to tell because you can't prove it. So it's very easy for Social Security sometimes to just say, we're not, you seem okay to me. I've seen that. And they even write that sometimes on the decisions. The person seemed okay. Okay, you're not a doctor at all. You're just, a lawyer who became a judge. And, we'll let the professionals, the social workers, the doctors, the caseworkers give an evaluation. We have here different forms we can, if people contact us, are free. I think we'll have all our contact information at the end of the webinar. People can contact us for different forms. If they want to have a form, an idea of what Social Security is looking for. There's nothing necessary. You can also just write something. It doesn't have to be on an exact form. It could be on a letter. Any assistance given to a claimant is definitely, from someone who's treating them, is definitely helpful. And there are different issues on the physical, if the person has a physical problem or if the person has a psychiatric problem. I think we'll look at now the next couple of screens will just be some psychiatric forms. So it asks for some diagnosis, and okay, then it lists a bunch of different areas where what the person has, like what they're suffering for. So that's important to fill out. And then other questions about the medication. Just trying to keep it moving. Okay, I'll talk about this page for a minute. So if you could see, it says on top on average, how often would the person be absent a month? This is like a critical question. A lot of the questions are interesting, but not critical. So it's even better, if not every question is, oh yeah, the person is totally, absolutely disabled, because then they kind of are, question those kinds of answers. But some of the key ones, it's important to know that they would have lost. So when they're talking about how often they would be absent because of a psychiatric or physical issue, the more the better. So so if you want it at least twice a month or more, that would be helpful. If you want to help the person, then it would be at least twice or more. When you look at this is kind of important. When you talk about the filling out a form, and there's different areas, there's different boxes. So there's no loss, mild loss. Obviously, that means the person's fine. And then there's moderate, marked, or extreme. So a lot of times, some people, we might think moderate. There's no 100% answer. It's a case by case. People always could feel free to call us, but you're moderate. You want marked in some areas, some key areas, such as attention and concentration, being able to, so you want some moderate, because some marked, I'm sorry. You want some marked loss, some moderate. Social Security, again, even though it's defined as can sustain the performance only up to 2/3 of a day, and usually that would be meaning you cannot perform full-time work. But there's different case laws, and Social Security argues that I'm not joking, that moderate actually means mild. There's actually cases in court, so they'll say that moderate means mild, and the person's actually okay, and they can continue. So you don't want everything extreme, but you definitely want a couple of marked in some key areas. Some moderate. So here, I'll just look at some of the areas. What are the key areas? Some, like the first one, doesn't really matter, remembering locations, but in the middle, then it says maintain attention and concentration. That's a key one. Maintain regular attendance. That's a key one. Sustain an ordinary routine. very important. Okay, so some are, like I said, more important than others. Okay, here's also some issues. The ones on the other page are, I would say, more important, but interacting with people is an issue also. If that is a limitation, then it's very important to know. Sorry. Sorry, I keep saying the same thing. Okay, this is an area that Social Security looks at a lot. They talk about daily living, social functioning. Concentration, persistence, and pace. The third one is a very, very important one. So you would want, the more limited the person is with that. And again, if someone has like some anxiety or some PTSD, then you can't be off task. A lot of times the question is how much time off task a person can be. So a person can't really be off task too much and, still be doing a job no matter how simple it is. Okay, so that's the forms. Again, we could talk a little more if someone wants to call us and talk in more detail about the forms. Just an idea of what is happening is initial applications, most of the people, 75% get denied. Then they have a reconsideration level. They instituted a second level. Pretty much everyone's denied. Why they instituted that second level, I'm not sure. It's like, I'm not really, well, I might be a little cynical, but I would say to try to get more people to drop out. But that could just be me being cynical, but I can't think of another reason to have a stage where you deny 87% of the people. And then at the hearings, almost half of the people, again, probably all the people who are getting it, or almost all, are represented by attorneys and who are getting approved at the hearings, and even then, not always. Okay, just very quickly about the different areas we do. I'll just say what happened is it used to be when I started off, Social Security was really non-adversarial as the law says it should be, and it's become very adversarial. And as a result, we do many more areas. So now we help with initial applications. Technically, you don't need an attorney to do an initial application. It's filling out a form. But the way it could be helpful is what you have on the form, then a lot of times, like I said, the judges look at it and try to catch the people, even though the hearing might be a year or two later. If there's a discrepancy between the initial application and where the person filled out, they weren't, they don't know anything about Social Security and no one was helping them, and they filled out something, and then there's some discrepancy later between how long they could sit or stand, or what they're doing in their daily activities, then Social Security will use it against them and then call them, oh, you lied, as if as if they lied in a grand jury or something, and which is not true, but then they'll use it against them and then kind of like kibosh the whole thing. It's not necessarily devastating, but for that reason, we started helping people with initial applications so that the case is smoother all around and they can't use that against the people. Then we still do the reconsideration, like I said, which is kind of useless. We do the hearings, which is the best chance for people to win. If you don't win the hearing, you can appeal to the appeals council. And then what we do, and I've been doing now for probably 13 years, is federal court. And that's where I spend a lot of my own time. We have two other attorneys in our office who do a lot of the hearings. But in federal court, you can, the people who get denied, sometimes there's nothing to do, that the judges will just deny people. But in federal court, that's like the last hope. So we get the cases sent back, and then the people get to have another hearing, hopefully before a different judge, and then can ultimately win. The good thing about us is, since we do federal court and we do all the stages, we know all the federal court has the laws and the case law. So what it helps us actually to do the hearings and even the initial applications. What's going to be like what Social Security means by severe, what they mean by moderate, how they view it in a way that, and the courts have viewed it in ways that normal people would not necessarily think the words mean the same thing. Okay, what do we do? So we're at the hearing, we're preparing the clients, we're getting records, and it's important in the records to as much as possible note the different issues, because Social Security loves records nowadays, loves records, and if there's any letter or form that you can help the claimant with, it would definitely be very appreciated by them. We have some of our own. We have some Google reviews. If anyone wants to contact us, read up about us. Sorry, going backwards. Okay, that's some of the people in the office. I was at a hearing that day, so I wasn't there. But okay.
Share the video.
Huh?
We can also share the video if you want to try it now. I can try sharing my screen since we're at the end of
Okay.
it.
Should we share the video and then go to questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Am I sharing it?
I'm actually trying to share it right now.
Okay.
It's letting me.
I think that video doesn't want to be shown.
Or yes, we can. It is on our website too. So
We do have a lot of great questions in here.
yeah.
Okay. So we can go to questions. The video, let's see, is our website there?
Yeah, it's on the next page.
Oh, website on the next page. Sorry.
And
Let's
we can
just
also
show.
throw the website into the chat box as well. So I'm going to start from the top. There's lots of questions in here. We're going to get to, I see a few of them kind of repeat topics. And so I'll try and make sure we hit the most repeated topics. I have a question from Yael on, do court personnel get training on these things prior to a court date? I have a client whose foot was destroyed, and the judge said he can work while sitting down in retail. But he used to be in construction and can't go back to it. So she feels that that's insensitive. Essentially saying you need to find just a different way to work or work around it. So just wondering if there's any cultural humility or competency training that's offered to court personnel.
I just wasn't sure. The person wasn't a court, like a court officer. What do you mean court personnel?
Look, court personnel. So if it's someone, do people who work within the court systems, do they also have training on these issues?
Because they seemed insensitive.
I guess that was what I was thinking.
Well, the judges are doing the ALJs are mostly, this is what they're doing all day, but I mean, what I do is, pick their decisions apart in federal court, and they pretty much almost always make mistakes. It's quite, Social Security is kind of an interesting area where on one level it's kind of simple. I kind of try to give the basics about like working here, but on the other hand, it's kind of complex. There's books and many cases on it, and so there's many levels of how it is. Social Security, I don't think that. So the judges, the ALJs are very familiar with this. That's pretty much what they're doing all day. Are they sensitive? That's a different question. I think that actually people are. I think that's the myth. I think the idea is. I think they used to be. I think there's a tremendous pressure. I don't even blame all the ALJs. They're under tremendous pressure now to process a lot of cases. So they're also very angry, it's like with society, it's just like everywhere. So the judges themselves are very stressed. even though they applied for these jobs, and I think they're very good jobs, well-paying jobs with a lot of perks, they're very stressed, they're angry, they're they're not happy. They're under tremendous pressure, and so I don't think that there's a lot of sensitivity for anyone. I had some oral arguments in federal court with some of the judges, and it's interesting in it just changes between the judge. It's like different worlds. Some judges are very sympathetic, and some judges are like a brick wall. So
Thank you. Emily asks, is the recertification process the same for both SSD and SSI? And are there different timeframes for each condition?
what was it? What was it? Was the reconsideration process?
Like recertification, or like I don't know if that might be the exact language that you would use, but
You,
when recertifying or renewing SSD and SSI, is the process the same, and is there a different time frame for each one?
when you apply, there's a few differences between SSI and SSD. When you apply, like for SSD, for SSI you can apply today and you can't go back. For SSD, you can apply today and say you were disabled a year ago. For there's not really a recertification. Like if you're on SSI and SSD, you don't have to recertify. Social Security may question you. They may look to cut you off. And in that case, you just have to prove that you're, in both instances, that your disability is continuing.
So there's other questions kind of around that same topic. So is there a limit to how long you can be on SSI or SSD?
Great question. No, there's no limit to it. When you reach retirement age, then you'll switch to Social Security retirement if it's SSD. So, and if it's SSI, then you'll stay on SSI because you probably didn't qualify for retirement. So you can right, there's not really a limit to how you get it. I think that a lot of times Social Security, one of the other ways that I think Social Security, and I'm saying this because Judge have actually said it to me, so it's not, I don't have to guess what they're thinking. They'll say, oh, I'm not going to give it to this person. They're young. They're going to get it forever or something. But unfortunately, a lot of the disabled, if you read if you're familiar with them, which I'm sure a lot of you are, and I'm reading through their record, some of the people are really not well, and they have multiple physical and or psychological problems, and you just know that these people are really not well and not going to live, to their 80s. So the people, need it. Sometimes they're in their 50s, and that's why we're fighting to get it for them, and it's really heartbreaking when they have to wait years. And they don't have a tremendous amount of time, but there's no technical there's nothing technical where they're going to get cut off after a certain amount of years.
Right, thank you. A few questions around COVID. How would one demonstrate to a judge that COVID was contracted at work? Wondering if there's a barrier in granting that, or if there is any general guidance or experience you can share around, long haul COVID.
Question for Social Security disability or SSI, you don't have to show that it was contracted at work. So I'm not sure exactly why that question, that maybe is more if there was like a workers' compensation case. But so for Social Security, it doesn't really matter where the person got COVID. It technically doesn't really matter sometimes if the issue is because of COVID. Maybe they had COVID, maybe they have some issues, but maybe they had some anxiety before then they had COVID and they have some resulting physical issues or something, and that exacerbated. Now, before the anxiety, they were able to deal with it. Now they're not able to deal with it because of the added impairments, physical impairments or how they're feeling. Again, we don't necessarily have to show. Sometimes also, I'll say, a lot of the people are also taking tremendous amount of medication for a combination of issues. So people are taking so many different medications. I wonder how they're able to keep it straight. But the medications also cause some issues. So sometimes, again, for our purposes, it doesn't really matter. We try to just show the different issues that the person may have. So the person may have a lot of fatigue and tiredness and not be mentally sharp. I don't know if it's because they're in pain that they can't concentrate. I don't know if it's because they have depression and depression makes them tired or out of it, or because of the medication that they're taking, either for their pain or the depression. The medication is oftentimes designed to dull the pain, either the mental pain or the physical pain, and make them more sluggish. That's by design. So whatever the reason is, the point is, if the end result is that they're sluggish and they're going to be off task, then that's important to note for as far as their ability to work. So same thing just for the COVID. It doesn't 100% matter if it's from work or where it's from.
All right. Let me jumping around a little bit here. I'm not exactly sure what this certification is, but Kelsey is wondering if a New York State disability certification from SDRU is recognized by SSA for SSI. I don't know if you recognize what I'm referencing.
I'm not familiar with that, with SDRU. I don't know I'm not sure what it stands for.
I think I'm seeing here it's the State Disability Review Unit.
Okay.
After looking quickly, yes, that's what Kelsey said.
That could be, but I don't understand the question.
Possibly just, Kelsey, if you want to elaborate, but possibly just if that is something that's typically recognized or typically helpful in getting SSI or SSD approved.
I'm not sure. Are they part of who's reviewing it? Are they reviewing it from Social Security? I'm not too familiar with that. I could look that up and they could contact me afterwards. I don't want to give an answer that I'm not sure of.
All right, that works. Kathia is wondering, can you apply while you are still working? So can the client apply for SSI and SSD while still working?
Interesting question. Well, if you're working full time, it's probably not a relevant idea, because the question is, can you work full time? So if you're working full time, then you're by definition not disabled, even if you have some issues, even if you're pushing yourself. But the fact that you are working means that you are able to work, so you're not going to be disabled. If you're working part-time, though, you could work part-time and get disability. For example, we've had it a couple of times, but for example, someone with multiple sclerosis. So this person, it's very rough disease and it progresses, but the person has some ability to do some things at some points of the week. So I recently had someone who was a hairdresser, so she worked part-time, and that was okay. You could work part-time. It's clear she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. There wasn't any doubt about that. And so she was able to work and continue to work even after being awarded benefits. But it was that kind of a case where you definitely had a clear disability, and but that's why, again, you don't have to be bedridden or need a home attendant to get Social Security disability. You just have to be not able to work on a full-time basis. But if you are working on a full-time basis, then it's not, I don't know why you would apply.
All right. Kathia has a question. What happens if you're approved for amount that you can't live off of? Would you still have to pay your student loans, your tax debt, or other child support once approved?
If you're approved for an amount, well, that's kind of beyond the scope of this webinar. But I think there are other avenues that I think if you're on disability, uh, there's probably a chance that the loans will be told, uh, and you could probably get other assistance. Again, if you're on disability, either SSI or SSD, then you're going to get you'll get health benefits, which is could cost a lot of money. So that's critically important. You will get some cash, and you probably will get some assistance with housing and with other benefits. There are some people in our office, such as Lourdes, office manager, and a couple of others who could probably help with those answers more than what I do on my end.
All right, thank you. Another question is, can the amount received increase or decrease? Is cost of living or inflation taken into consideration over time?
Definitely. Right. The inflation is taken into account in the cost of living. So, of course, it's being debated in Congress, how much that will continue. Some people want to make it even, increase more. Some people want to make it, increase less. But the last few years, as we've seen, people who have been on it since inflation, some years there's been low inflation. So there's a very small change between the years. But the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a big, unfortunately for everyone, that there's been a lot of inflation. So the amounts have gone up substantially. So yes, it does go up based on inflation.
Thank you. Kelsey has a client who receives SSD as a child of a disabled parent. Would a child be eligible for SSI due to their own disability?
Yes, and they actually could be. This is again, there are a lot of like niches within Social Security, and little different questions, but the person could get SSI, and the person might be able to get what's called adult child disability, just because they might, if they were disabled. Again, maybe yes, maybe no. There's different criteria for getting disability as a child than adult. We also do children. I know someone was doing a pediatric outpatient, so we also do children's cases. Those are only SSI usually. But if the person was getting Social Security or SSI as a child, and they still have a disability as an adult, you could get SSI as an adult, and possibly adult child disability based on the parents' earnings.
Right, thank you. I have two questions about the appeal process.
Okay.
In generally, Yale's wondering how it works, and also how long does it typically take to do an appeal?
There's not really a typical, but there's the key thing of how it works is to do it on time. Whatever level you're at, make sure your appeal is on time. So usually you have 60 days in between each level. So if you get denied on the application, you want to appeal for the reconsideration. And usually when you get denied at the reconsideration, then you want to appeal for a hearing. If you get denied at the hearing, then you have 60 days to appeal to the appeals council. If you get denied at the appeals council, then you have usually 60 days to appeal to federal court. So there's no typical, because like I said, sometimes there are people that we can get it for at the initial application. There's very, very rare that you can get it at the reconsideration, but then a lot of people can get it at the hearings. But then if you don't get it at the hearings, a lot of times the appeals council is just kind of another way station. But federal court is moving along faster, and then it usually goes back for another hearing. So we've had people, get it initially after less than a year at the application, and I've had clients where we've gotten it for them after 10 years and going to federal court 3 or 4 times. So it's hard to say that there's nothing really typical. You just have to keep going. The good thing about the person who got it for 10 years is they got all their back money. So they didn't lose. It was a very rough time sustaining themselves, but eventually they got a nice amount of money back for all that time that they were waiting. And what's important is that no one can guarantee that you're going to win at any level, but if you process the case correctly, and you're always getting the documents, and someone's helping you, and the hearing is going well, and you have good testimony at the hearing, eventually you're going to succeed.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question from Kelsey. Does SSD qualify as an eligibility criteria for HCBS in New York State for a child? Our health home is not clear on this, so that's for like a home and community-based service.
I don't know if Lourdes can speak about that. That's out of my wheelhouse. I can't say exactly. If Kelsey wants, she could call our office. I think maybe somebody else in the office can answer.
All right, and I can see Ruth has written in a few times in here, just sharing about her experiences, about how difficult that this process can be, just for her personally, how she tackled it, and how hard she knows that it must be for many of clients and community members out there as well. I'm just gonna hold for a moment and wait a beat. If anyone wants to unmute, ask a question, or make a comment before we close, feel free to unmute now and speak up or make a question or comment.
I have a question. My name is Ellen Silver. Is there anything, because our language is different than your language, is different than the Social Security Department's language, is there anything specific that we should have in our reports and our notes that would be helpful for our clients as they go through the process, how we explain their disability in our record keeping?
That's a good question. It depends. It depends. What are we talking about? Psychological issues?
Yes.
Okay. Very good question. Actually, a lot of times, uh, maybe you can tell me, but a lot of times Social Security changed. One of the ways they changed is they not only are kind of cynical about attorneys, about the clients, about the attorneys, they're also cynical about doctors and other health providers. So they used to just take, letters, which they still take and are still helpful, but they don't just rely. They used to give a lot of weight to, a treating health provider's opinion, whereas now they sometimes do and sometimes don't. So now they want a lot of records, and they look through the records, and sometimes it's actually amazing, because sometimes the records are enormous, and they'll find like one or two things where the person, which is like detrimental to the person, they'll focus on that. So I like to say, I think one of the issues that we have is sometimes the records, providers make the records for themselves, not for the Social Security hearing. And Social Security is, looks at it in a different way. So I think, first of all, it's important to maybe give an additional letter explaining, if you think that the person may not be able to work full time, to explain that first of all, not to exactly say like that, but the person's limited because of these different issues. And what they look at in the record, I'm not sure if what there is to do about it, but they'll look for the word stable. If the person's always stable, they take that somehow to mean like doing well. Um, there's not much that's not really such a bad thing, but um, I guess if it's couched as, the person, like we want to still note the limits, like even if the person's doing better, the person's improving, uh, you'll still want to note, but still needs, to come in weekly for therapy and to take their medications and is, or is maybe improving because they're in a non-stressful situation. They're not, but if they're placed in a work environment that could, set them back, or in a stressful situation, it could set them back. So those kinds of explanations um, could be important, I think, just to make it clear. A lot of times, so what I think is in the records sometimes, so a doctor or a therapist or a social worker might say, the person's doing okay in all the, which is, but it's in context of, yes, well, I see 100 or a couple of hundred mental health patients all day. So this person doesn't need to have, be institutionalized, and they're not a threat to others or something. Whereas social security, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're, oh yeah, I want them to be in the next cubicle for me, all day, and they're going to be so, as to the extent possible that you can make it clear that there are issues still, that's helpful.
Thank you.
If we have any questions, feel free to jump in. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. It's 7:30. Of course, this will be posted as a recording. So if you need to jump off, feel free to, and you'll be able to view it. But if anyone has any last questions, feel free to speak up.
If I don't know if I should say now, if anyone has other questions or they're too shy or don't have time, they could always contact our office. I think the phone number and the emails and websites are there. And I think that the video should be on the website. Yeah.
Yeah, Kelsey is wondering if you do pro bono, or if you have any suggestions for folks who can't afford an attorney, as well as do you have any bilingual staff members?
Great question. All our staff is bilingual. I have my Spanish is limited, but everybody else is bilingual. So everyone's bilingual, and most of our clients are bilingual, actually, or at least half of our clients are bilingual. As far as someone who can't afford it, everyone can afford it because Social Security is very strict with the attorneys. We don't have any private agreements with clients. Everything has to be approved by Social Security, and there's no fee up front, so everyone can afford it. And there's no fee unless and until the people get the benefits, and then it's a very small amount from the back benefits, nothing from the future. So there's really nobody has to pay it. We cover all the costs up front, and all the copying, and so it's really affordable for everybody.
All right, well, it looks like our questions have slowed down. I just want to thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Sharon and Susan, so much for joining us. As I said, this, of course, will be posted to YouTube. No, definitely before Friday. I can't promise it's going to happen tomorrow, but everyone will be able to receive this recording and reference it through YouTube as well. So thank you all. Daniel, is there anything that you'd like to say in closing?
I thank everyone for your patience. Thank you, Amelia, for the opportunity. And our staff, we really like helping people, and we appreciate again all the hard work that you're doing for your patients. And if anyone has any questions that either we weren't able to answer, or you didn't think of, or you just want to talk to us, or something comes up in the future, feel free to contact us. We'll be more than happy to talk on the phone or talk to your group, however we might be able to help. Thanks again. I hope everyone has whatever the weather, wherever you are, hope you have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a
Thank
great night, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night, everybody.